The first Olympic athletes, page 74. In the days of legend, Zeus, the greatest of the Greek gods, hurled a lightning bolt from the top of Mount Olympus. It struck a place west of Athens. There, the Greeks built a great religious center, Olympia. It was dedicated to Zeus and the other gods. Olympia became the site of festivals filled with athletic competition, dance, and music, gifts of those same gods. The Olympic Games were born. Every 4 years, a messenger carried the announcement of the Games from Elis, the location of Olympia, to all the Greek city-states. The messenger took with him a bronze discus listing the rules of the sacred truce. Even when the Greeks were engaged in serious wars, the fighting had to stop during the months surrounding the Games. City-states that broke that agreement could not take part in the Games. The truce was rarely broken. Competition was of great importance in the education of young Greek men and women. It was considered the most sacred way to become perfect physically, spiritually, and intellectually. Victory at the final competition was the highest honor a person could have. It meant that his name would become immortal, that it would live forever. Athletes trained for perfection. A young man who went on to victory in the Games described an athlete's form. Page 77. The neck should be upright, like that of a horse which is beautiful and knows it. The tops of the shoulders should be erect. A well-marked arm must have broad veins starting from the neck, continuing to the throat, going down the shoulders, and descending into the hands. The straight back is beautiful, but the slightly curved back is more athletic, in order to adapt to the bending and forward-leaning posture of wrestling. Above all, the proper athlete should have endurance, courage, and skill. The Olympic Games were organized and run by a group of judges. Dressed in their rich purple robes, they ruled the Games with an iron fist. In order to provide the greatest spectacle, the judges supervised the athletes' training for a month before the Games. They literally separated the men from the boys. In the earliest Games, those who were beardless could not participate. Physical performance, overall character, and morality were the keys to selection by the judges. Page 78. And the judge has the whip at his disposal, not only for the athlete, but also for the trainer, and he uses it in case of any disobedience of his orders, and all who have to conform with the orders of the judges, since those who violate them may be immediately thrown out of the Games. The Olympic festival was a sight to behold. Colorful tents along the banks of the river housed both athletes and spectators. Musicians and dancers entertained the crowds. Representatives of all the Greek city-states dressed in their most colorful robes and riding in magnificent chariots paraded through Olympia. Spectators crowded the hillside, straining to catch a glimpse of their favorite athlete or some famous poet or politician. Although married women could not join the crowd, unmarried girls could. The Games began with a solemn sacrifice to Zeus. Then, the judges and athletes paraded from the sanctuary into the stadium. Spectators and athletes alike batted at the annoying flies, eager for the competition to begin. Standing proudly under the hot summer sun, the athletes had to swear that they were free-born Greeks of unmixed blood. They also swore that they would abide by the rules of the Games, that they had obeyed the rules of diet and training for the last 10 months, and that they had not committed any evil deed. During the earliest Games, the only competition was the stade, a race the length of a stadium. This was similar to the 200-meter race in modern Games. Under the broiling sun, the athletes took their places at the starting line. With a loud blast of trumpets, the barriers fell, and the race was on. The runners stretched their long legs and pumped their arms, striving for victory. Only one runner could win, his name forever linked with the Games in which the gods had favored him. On a day in 776 BC, the first winner was recorded for all time. That man was Coroebus of Elis. Page 80. In later years, other sports were added to the games: longer running races, boxing, wrestling, and the pentathlon. The games expanded from a single day to 5 or more. The greatest moment of all was the final day. As the sun set, the athletes again made their way to the temple of Zeus. The crowd showered them with flowers and leaves. The winners carried palm branches and wore red wool strips around their heads, gifts from the judges when the event ended. In the temple, crowns of wild olive leaves lay on gold and ivory tables. One by one, the winners approached the temple. In the proudest moment of the athlete's life, his name, his father's name, and the name of his native city were announced to the crowd. The crown placed on his head proved that he was a favorite of the gods. The greatest honor was one of immortality, for winners had the right to erect statues of themselves at Olympia, next to those of the gods who had supported their victories. Poems were written in the athletes' honor. Their names and the names of their cities were on everyone's lips. The names ended with a great feast. The quiet valley of Olympia rang with sounds of celebration, of singing, dancing, and praise for the greatest heroes of the games. And then the games were over. The names of the earliest Olympians did, indeed, become immortal. Even today, we tell their stories. One wrestler won his events in 6 different Olympics over a period of 24 years. His strength was legendary. According to his people, he carried his own statue into Olympia after his victories gave him that right. Another athlete won several Olympic events. It is said that when he was a boy of 9, he so admired a bronze statue of a god that he tore it from its base and took it home with him. Rather than being punished, he was made to carry it back. Because of his strength, his future at the games was assured. A famous boxer won many victories, but he never struck any of his opponents. He believed that to injure someone else was to show a lack of bravery. Spectators enjoyed watching as he defended himself against the blows from his opponents without striking them. His opponents finally became so exhausted and so discouraged that they could no longer hit him. Then they gave up and admitted defeat. In many ways, the spirit of those first Olympians still exists in the men and women athletes of the modern games. In the words of a famous Greek poet, "But if, my heart, you should sing of contest, look no further for any star warmer than the sun, shining by day through the lonely sky, and let us not proclaim any contest greater than Olympia."